everyone, and welcome back to the Tastemakers podcast. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and we are here today on this podcast, as always, to talk through the latest releases and news in the world of TV and film, talk about what's good, what's bad, and how to make your tastes. With me, as always, is Grace Leeder. How you doing, Grace?
I'm doing well, Taran. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited. I feel like there's some good stuff to talk about. We got some interesting news, and we're like I think we're like 1 week away from starting to discuss some big drops, and so I'm excited. We've got a couple of things, some news about future seasons of shows like The Pitt, like House of the Dragon. A couple of movie items. We got some of the new shows that dropped, like The Studio and Side Quest, and then some of the stuff coming up soon this week. So lots of fun stuff to talk about this week.
That's right. Yeah. Good week, but yeah, there's still. I feel like it's funny because it's like waiting a week for stuff, which I think is right. Except that like we've had a really good last couple of months. it's like just a continuation of all that.
Yeah, I mean the many of the great things on right now aren't done yet, and yet in just about a week or so, some big things will be dropping, like Black Mirror and Last of Us is coming soon. So it's they're really not going to let up. The first thing I wanted to talk about, speaking of not letting up, is that The Pitt, we know, has already been renewed for season 2. There was some news that not only has The Pitt been renewed for season 2, but they're going to be coming back soon. The season is not yet over, but they're planning to start releasing season 2 in January of 2026, meaning like the beginning of next year, which is unheard of in the landscape of current television, that you'd release a series that is not 3 to 6 episodes, not like half-hour episodes, so quickly after its first season, and it's extremely high quality. This is very exciting news, Grace.
It's very exciting, and I think that there's a little bit of we're getting into a wave of shows, and I think there are some networks and some streamers who are realizing how valuable it can be to release a show basically annually. The Bear is one. Only Murders in the Building has been like that. Hacks, I think, went like 2021, 2022, and then like 2024, and then it's coming back in April for 2025. But there is this like string of shows that I think they're like, we should just put this thing out as soon as possible. The Pitt, to me, the only thing I'm like surprised by is the sense that this feels like almost a show that, while it doesn't have what I assume a lot of the like CGI work that is necessary, like when you think about shows that need to like take a few years to come off to before they come back, I think about a show like House of the Dragon or The Last of Us, that's taken a little while for us to revisit. The Pitt doesn't feel like it's like totally that, but it still is ambitious enough that I am quite surprised that they're going to be able to supposedly churn out another season this quickly. And so that's like quite exciting to me, I think, Taran, in the sense of like, well, if the Pitt can do it and there's like this much stuff happening every episode, like, gosh, I'm surprised that other shows aren't able, and they're going to do, presumably, we'll see if it's 15 episodes. But
yeah, I mean, R. Scott Gemmell and John Wells did a lot of work on the original ER, so I think that they have like a lot of experience already with this kind of production. I mean, ER was a primetime drama prestige show, really one of, I would say, the first, like, in that era to really, like, it was very prestigious. It got a lot of awards, and it ran 22 to 24 episodes a season, fairly regularly. And so I have to imagine that the experience of being able to make a show like that informs how they're able to make a show like this, which is very similar. In the news release, the press release that they had, the interviews, whatever it was, they talked about like how it was intentional to have like a 15 episode season to sort of differentiate it from the current slate of television, and it's working. It's working really well. People are really responding to it, and the fact that they like, when I brought this up on screen, if you're watching the video, the series started January 9th, and it's April almost. Like, this show has just been on, and it's going to finish in April, and then it will be on again 8 months later, or 9 months later in January again. And that's pretty cool, and that's a fairly unique thing in television right now, especially for, again, like how well received it is. People are talking about Emmys for this show. I think this is a very competitive year. We'll have to see if the Emmys come, but man, the latest episode was incredible, and I would be very surprised if it is not nominated for a lot of things, including Noah Wyle as lead actor.
Yeah, no, I agree. I thought the ending of the last episode in particular was is quite moving. And then there's 2 more to go. That was 13, right? And there's 14 and 15 still to go. We said this last week. I think we said it at the very end of the episode, but our plan is to chat with Mike Bloom about the series as a whole after the finale airs, and we'll do that in all sorts of spoilery detail. But yeah, it just continues to be tremendous. I believe it's I think there's a thing where that show, the cast is so likable in the show. Just the ensemble that they've built is so good. I believe it's Brian Scally who put up a post of all of them, and it said, "I would die for any of these people," and then in brackets, that's probably okay because one of them would bring me back to life, which I thought was extremely good. So kudos to Brian Scally for that. But I do just think it's like, it is just working in a way. I mean, it's iterating on stuff we've seen before, but feels fresh and new. And I would be delighted for it to be back within a year on television. So, yeah.
Yeah, cool stuff. Speaking of shows that are coming back, but maybe not quite as quickly, we did get news about House of the Dragon season 3. Apparently, they just started filming House of the Dragon season 3.
Yeah.
So it's been a little like they took probably longer to start filming the next season of this show than it will take for the Pitt to start airing its next season. But that's how it goes. We got some casting news as well, some kind of exciting casting news. And then also a little bit of an interview and some interesting statements from Ryan Condal about his relationship with George Martin that I thought was very interesting.
Ooh, I did not see that, so that's kind of fun. Yeah, they cast Tommy Flanagan, who people would probably most recognize from Sons of Anarchy, and then Dan Fogler, who I think people would most recognize. He's sort of like the sidekick in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them in that series. And they also announced their directors. Looks like mostly folks who have directed House of the Dragon episodes before. So yeah, kind of exciting. I mean, yeah, it does seem like, boy, like it's been a while since the show's been on the air. That's well, this was always sort of the plan. That this December we'll get a Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and then probably like sort of next, sorry, I say December, I think I mean like sort of like end of the year ish, and then by the end of 2026 we should see House of the Dragon. And I think that their plan is to, for the meantime, go sort of their hope is to be every 2 years with a season of something in between. And for the time being, that will likely be A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, so long as it gets at least a decent reception. You would think so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe this broke on Entertainment Weekly. This interview broke. This interview dropped on Entertainment Weekly. This is the one here that he talks about the George Martin post, which we talked about on this podcast.
We did.
Where basically George Martin was like, they're screwing up my story.
Butterfly effect. They've removed a character and it will matter away in the future. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Basically, Connell said it was disappointing. He said that he says, I will simply say I made every effort to include George in the adaptation process. I really did, over years and years. And we really enjoyed a mutually fruitful, I thought, really strong collaboration for a long time. But at some point, as we got deeper down the road, he just became unwilling to acknowledge the practical issues at hand in a reasonable way. And I think as showrunner, I have to keep my practical producer hat on and my creative writer, love of the material hat on at the same time. At the end of the day, I just have to keep marching not only to the writing process moving, or not only the writing process forward, but also the practical parts of the process forward for the sake of the crew, the cast. For HBO, that's my job. So I can only hope that George and I can rediscover that harmony someday. That's what I have to say about it. Which, to me, I think fairly heavily implies that something that you probably could have assumed, which is that like the relationship broke down at some point, probably in the process of breaking season 2. And it was a little bit contentious, it sounds, and it led to a blog post by George Martin that he quickly deleted. And now Ryan Condal kind of saying, we kind of broke up.
It's really fascinating. I mean, I'm sort of reacting to this in real time because I did not realize that this had happened. Basically, Condal's reaction to it. What I think is really interesting is that I think for the most part, I think that George R. R. Martin's feelings are extremely understandable, and then probably posting a blog is less understandable. I think, but like probably whatever. Who cares to a degree in terms of like it happening? It's in terms of where I maybe start to put the blame a little bit on Condal is like that seems bad that the relationship fractured enough that then Martin went and posted it, but is there anything he could have done to stop him from doing that? I don't know. I think it's like extremely fair to acknowledge on both sides, one from the House of the Dragon Ryan Condal team to be like, yeah, you're adapting a thing. You only can do so much. Some things have to change. And also from George R. R. Martin, like you wrote the thing and you want to be protective over it. It's actually really interesting. I feel like I name drop him a ton on this podcast, but it's Richard Osman, who is a writer and game show host and British comedian, and he actually talked about his book is being adapted, Thursday Murder Club. It's being adapted on Netflix. It's bought by MobLand Entertainment, and he was asked like, "Do you want to write the script?" And he was like, "No, thank you." He's like, basically, and the reason he's like, I will become too attached to the idea of what it is supposed to be based on the book, and I would rather just say like somebody else take it and know you kind of have like, pretty much free reign, as long like he obviously is going to prove who he wants to do it, but you take it and you go. And I do think that there is this interesting conversation, Taran, I think about like if you're George R. R. Martin, like I guess it depends on what the like agreement was, but at some like yes, I think he should be protective over the material he made, and also he did sell it to HBO to make the thing, so it's complicated. I think.
Can I give you my fan fiction interpretation of how I think this fits for how I saw the show?
Yes.
My fan fiction version of this is that basically the two of them worked together. It went fine for season 1. I thought season 1 was mostly great. We know that when George Martin is working with showrunners on his material, it turns out some really good stuff. We know that when he's not working with showrunners on his material, it tends to get real sloppy real quickly. So in my version of this, George Martin, when they're working on season 2, he's getting real mad about small details that kind of maybe don't matter. Like the thing he wrote the blog post about. It was like not the thing that most people cared about in season 2. There were lots of complaints about season 2.
Yeah,
almost none of them were George Martin's complaints about season 2. So
Ryan
Condal,
I feel like the thing that he is upset about is the fact that they change a thing, and not that it matters now, but how much it's going to matter in the future is a thing that he. Yeah, I don't know if you were getting there, so apologies if you were, but
no, I think that's an important part to that. Not to say that that what George Martin cared about is not correct, but like it wasn't the big thing that most people cared about. And so Ryan Condal, I think, maybe feels justified in being like, dude, this inclusion of a character that might make a difference down the road is just not worth dying on that hill for. There are other things, probably like little nitpicks that he feels are nitpicks that just don't matter. And so that relationship sours because George Martin is like, I'm not going to work with you if you're not willing to add these things that I think are important. He says, practically, I don't think they're important. So the relationship deteriorates. And that's when I think the real problems start, because now without George Martin's guidance, things get sloppy like they did in Game of Thrones. So not to say that like George Martin is like 100% right with all of his details, and I think Ryan Condal probably has a point about practicality, but I do think that without them being able to come to some kind of agreement or like some kind of working relationship, the show as a whole suffers greater than the parts of what's happening, because I really think that without George's input, the show suffers, the story suffers, and so that's my version of how it happened.
No, I think that makes sense, and I think this is what I'm trying to like toy with, and I think essentially, like I remember I nothing I'm going to say here. I'm going to say it in a way that sounds like, oh, it's entirely this person's to blame or this person's to blame, and that's not true. It can be like, Connell can both be right and wrong, and George Martin can be both right and wrong. And my thing is that I feel like it's kind of bad that Condal didn't manage the relationship well enough in a way that ultimately leaves George Martin to feel so burned and upset that he goes and writes a blog post. And like, is it wrong for him to write the blog post? Like, yeah, but also it's Condal's responsibility, I think, to like manage that relationship, or somebody at HBO's. That's somebody's job. Maybe I'm putting too much weight on like Ryan Condal, but it's somebody's job to make sure that George R. Martin doesn't go rogue and is so like upset about the way things have happened that he's writing a blog post, not only just like being like talking about specific things, but also alluding to the fact that like, and you just wait till the other stuff that they mess up. It's like, that's bad. That's so bad. So I don't know. That's kind of where I land. I feel like they're both kind of,
worth mentioning that George Martin seems to be very excited for A Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he was also excited for House of the Dragon when that first came out. We'll see. Uh-huh. We'll see. This could be a situation where if that relationship also starts to wait, then maybe we'll really start to look at the soul constant factor there. But yes. Yeah. All right. So that's the House of the Dragon news.
Yeah.
There was something I was a little bit interested in. So I don't remember if we talked about him a bunch, but Zach Kreger is a big up-and-coming horror director. Mm-hmm. We talked about his deal with for Resident Evil, and there was some news recently that on the Resident Evil project, they have apparently offered the lead role to recent Oscar winner Mikey Madison.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
She went a little viral this weekend. She was on Saturday Night Live. And there's been, I feel like she did a continuation of a sketch. I'm struggling to remember the name of the people who do their new digital shorts. So like kind of new Lonely Island group, whoever the people are currently doing it. I'll pull it up as we're talking. But Bad Bunny had done like a Shrek sketch where he like shows up as in full Shrek outfit, and it like basically showed like, oh, that's so fun that he's so game. Mikey Madison showed up as Squidward and just like walks into a scene fully dressed as Squidward. And then they do a riff on like, what if SpongeBob was a highly prestige drama? That was very fun. I feel like it's been all over my social media. So Mikey Madison is game, I think, to do whatever. And this is her getting cast. That's a very fun and interesting move coming off of her Oscar win. So exciting.
Yeah, I don't think it's like locked in yet by any means, but very, very interesting. And I think I'm just excited to continue to see what Kreger does, and I'm also interested to see what Mikey does. And so if they come together and make something really fun. I know a lot of people are very skeptical about Resident Evil as a property because it's been milked to death by films already, and they have not been great. But right now, I have some amount of faith in Zach Kreger. So, and if Mikey Madison and her sort of team think this is a good move for her post Oscars, then I think that's another positive sign. So,
there's another IP property that has, I think, an interesting move. We talked a little while ago about the fact that Amazon had sort of like acquired the rights for James Bond, and they announced the producing team behind who will do the first new version of the James Bond franchise, which is Amy Pascal and David Heyman. And Amy Pascal is probably most known for running Sony Studios until the Sony leak happened. She is behind a lot of the success of the Spider-Man a franchise. And David Heyman is most known for producing the Harry Potter films. So part of so then when Amy Pascal got sort of pushed out of when she was let go from Sony, she opened up Pascal Pictures. And I think what people are seeing in terms of this this move is some excitement in the sense of these are two producers who are able to take franchise IP and are able to, they are not people who just do anything with it. There was a little bit of this concern about Amazon getting the rights to James Bond. It's like, okay, we're going to see like 4 TV shows and 5 movies and all this stuff. And it does feel like it's very interesting, their choice of people to produce these films. Both Pascal Pictures and Heyday Films are people who have taken franchise IP and been very careful and selective with it for the most part. Like, I think for as much as we could say, like, is Harry Potter's reputation the best it's ever been, like, I don't know if you can argue that that's anything to do with the movie. I mean, the Wild
movies
Beast,
were
the
fine.
Fantastic Beast stuff, like a little,
well,
yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah, I know. Yeah, and they're gonna
I would say that's not the fault of the movie producers as much as it was the fault of the source material.
I agree. So, and they're, that's within that world that they're trying to, but and actually, if you look at Harry Potter, like Harry Potter, like they've just said it's an interesting choice for them to be like, I think sort of quell some of the fears about what people might do with James Bond. So that to me was kind of interesting in terms of who can handle things. And Amy Pascal, the other reason I bring her up today specifically is that she is the inspiration for a character in a television show in the studio that we're going to talk about later today. She's actually the direct inspiration for Catherine O'Hara's character in the studio. So yeah,
it's funny because when I saw the picture of her, I was like, wow, she looks like such a typical movie producer, which has immediately gone into my consciousness because of the studio. Well, we'll talk about the studio very shortly. I did want to briefly mention, you brought this up earlier before we started recording. Coyote versus Acme has been purchased. Is that what it is? Coyote versus Acme? Yes.
Yeah, Coyote versus Acme. This film that Warner Brothers had created and then decided to shelve for tax reasons. Basically, it has seemingly found a new home. Not many details about what that actually means or will look like. Like, that doesn't say anything about whether it will be released in theaters or whether it will come to a streaming platform or whatever. All it means is that, like, presumably Ketchup Entertainment did not buy this to shelve it, so they will release it. It just
I believe they've already said they plan to release it and give it a theatrical release. So I think
I feel like what would be extremely fun would be for this movie to just become like, I feel like a little bit of a grassroots, like, let's all go to the movies to watch Coyote versus Acme could be like one of the weirdest, like, if you could see that in 2020, later 2025 being like, remember when the Coyote versus Acme was like one of the highest grossing box office films as like a protest statement? I don't know if that actually happened, but yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
We'll see. All right. So the studio started. This is the new Apple TV show. Was sort of, I think, in my view, sort of like similar sounding to, I forget the name again. The franchise. Thank you. In that it's following, people making movies, and it's comedy. But this is very different from that show, I would say. And I would also say considerably better. This one really surprised me, and I really enjoyed it. This is the second show I've started watching, having like mild to somewhat excited expectations, and was surprised to discover that all of their episodes are mostly one takes, and it's also very good.
I think that might be just the premise of the second episode, but
but I mean, even the first episode was largely. I mean, it wasn't like a whole episode one take like Adolescence and like the second episode, but most of the shots were long oneers. Most of the scenes.
Yes, the premise of the show: Seth Rogen becomes the head of a studio after Catherine O'Hara's character is fired, and Ike Barinholtz and Catherine O'Hara and some other folks are Bryan Cranston is in the show as well, are sort of like working with him. And then it's sort of fun. It has various celebrities who are either going by their, like Martin Scorsese is in an episode, Sarah Polley, Greta Lee, all playing versions of themselves. And I just think that this show, first of all, I think it very quickly knows what it is, Taran. I feel like it is definitely a comedy. It's very funny, but it also is saying something, and it is basically this thing of Seth Rogen's character is in the movie business because he loves movies, and also is now the head of a movie studio at a time where we've never been further removed maybe from like, this, even if that idea of old Hollywood ever really existed, it's certainly gone. And so, the first episode has this whole framework of like Kool-Aid IP and trying to figure out what can he do with Kool-Aid IP and whether or not he can create an art house film disguised as franchise IP, and the sort of challenges that come with that. It's very good. And then just the style is completely distinct and feels fresh, and I just really enjoyed the first 2 episodes of The Studio Turn.
It's very good. I watched the first episode, was pretty enthralled, and was very excited to watch the second one. And the second one I thought was even better. I would say the biggest caveat, because I think I could recommend the show to anyone, with the warning that it is difficult sometimes to watch because of how much it will just hurt you.
Yeah, it's cringe.
Like, cringy wise. It's just like, you just be like, please stop.
The second episode in particular, I didn't find it that bad, the first one, because I felt there was something about the shtick of that didn't get to me.
The first one wasn't too bad for most of it, but the second one was just from go. It was just like, no.
Yeah, like it's funny because there's this level to which, like, I think you think that he should. It's very much like, Michael Scott was hard to watch, but there's a way in which like he's so oblivious, but you're like, Seth Rogen's character should not be oblivious, and yet he is being oblivious, and you just want to yell at him through the television screen. So yeah, if you don't like awkward or cringe, I definitely agree that you will be more frustrated by this than maybe otherwise. But I found it quite enjoyable. So
it was very, very fun. I'm excited for this show. I think that I think it's good, and I think it will be well received as it continues to air.
It's really interesting.
Another one to add to your list here.
Did you see this like video from Rob Lowe's podcast that went with him and Adam Scott? Have you seen this clip about the game show The Floor? Does this hit your feed, Taran? No. So Rob Lowe says that they are making the American game show The Floor by flying 100 Americans over to Ireland and producing the show there. And it's cheaper to do that than it is to like he like they're, I think, on a lot in it's like it's cheaper to fly everyone over to Ireland rather than go across the street and film on a lot in Los Angeles. And so and so Adam Scott says, like, yeah, like if like Parks and Rec were made today, we'd be like shooting in Budapest. And so the clip has gone a little viral in the sense of like it does feel like in the from the last few years, but then I think exaggerated a little bit by the strikes and the strikes of some of the, rightfully so, the guarantees that like actors and writers got has also meant that like now studios are like trimming like size of writers' rooms and the amount of shows that they're doing and looking for places where they get a bunch of tax credits to shoot and shooting outside of Los Angeles. And so the kind of the interesting, I think it's very interesting for the studio to come along at a time and be like sort of like critical of the way in which studios are making movies in the modern time, while also like there's this real reality that like people within Hollywood are being like, yeah, nobody films stuff in Hollywood anymore. It's just like it's too expensive. It doesn't make any sense. For studio, like that doesn't make sense. Studios are the way the system works is incentivized to not make them there because of the way that the industry works. So I think it's very interesting that a show like The Studio comes out at the exact, like basically at a time where like people are starting to notice the fact that Hollywood in of itself is sort of not being quite as active as it has been in the last few years. So It's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there are a couple other shows to mention here. The first one, Side Quest, which is the spin-off show of Mythic Quest, which just ended. We'll talk about that in just a moment. It's 4 standalone episodes. Again, I mentioned this last week, but basically, Mythic Quest became known. The premise of Mythic Quest is that it's a game developing company, and every season there's one standalone episode that tends to be the best episode of the season. I don't think that was the case this season. I think that the standalone episode this season was not great. And maybe that's because they spent all their effort making 4 other ones for side quests. It was good. I thought it was good. I watched all 4. I would say this is a solid base hit. I think that the 3rd episode is probably my favorite, but none of them were like super standout. I just still don't think they're quite as good as some of the high points from the Mythic Quest standalone episodes. But it's, I would say, probably worth watching if you're a Mythic Quest fan. If you're not a Mythic Quest fan, you might find some enjoyment out of these if you're like big into comics or games. But for the most part, it was good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is so I wanted to watch it so that, I knew that you talked about it last week and that it was happening. So but I'm behind on Mythic Quest.
You don't need to be caught up on Mythic Quest, for the record. Yeah.
You don't, but I also felt a little bit of like I feel like if I was I haven't watched Mythic Quest in seasons. So it's like a little bit of the thing where like if you're gonna do it's like imagine jumping into a video game where you jump into the side quest without really like I couldn't really like remember where we were in the terms of the story of Mythic Quest, right? And I know it's unrelated, but I was feeling a little bit like my recommendation would be like, not that you need to watch all of Mythic Quest, but I feel like I should have watched a few Mythic Quest episodes and then been like, okay, now I'm gonna go to the side quest because I'm like in it. I was feeling a little bit like it's just. And the fact that it's anthology, I think, as well.
I don't think it helps that the first, because I think you watched just one episode, right?
Just one, yeah.
That is by far the most related to Mythic Quest episode.
Right.
Because it has Rob McElhenney.
Yeah.
In it.
Yeah. So I was a little like, I felt like I watched side quest because I knew we were going to be talking about it, and now like I probably will go watch. I feel like I need to like go catch up a little bit on Mythic Quest, and not that I need to like complete it before I watch more of side quest, but I feel like I'll just be in it a little more than I think I was as I was watching the first episode. Not that it was bad; it's good. I liked the actor. I think one of them is from Anna Kunkel is known for Pen 15. Is a show that she co-created, I believe. She's best friends with the co-creator, and that's a show that's very funny. And so
yeah, co-creator.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. All right. I also did check out. Here, I'll go with. I think we both watched MobLand as well.
Yeah.
I thought it was fine.
Yeah. Okay. So this is basically Tom Hardy plays Harry, who is like a fixer kind of for a mob family. Pierce Brosnan and Helen Mirren are like the patriarch and matriarch of this mob family, and most of the story is going to be about the fact that like there's their troubled grandson gets into a situation that needs fixing and unravels a lot of what's been going on. All the while, Harry has a mess of his own at home, where like his home life is become strained, likely because he works in the mob. That's basically it. I definitely feel like it's definitely way better than the movie Alto Nights that I talked about last week. That's the Robert De Niro movie, but I definitely feel like it's of the same problem, which is like if you are not doing something so new in the mob family crime drama scene, I don't know really what we're doing. I do think this is interesting. It's the first 2 episodes. Interesting, not necessarily the show. The Guy Ritchie signed on to direct the first 2 episodes, which is something. This show was also supposed to be a spinoff in the Ray Donovan world, and then was rewritten to become the MobLand. Just
that kind of makes
own
sense.
thing. I think you can feel that a little bit too. So I think generally, I don't know that it's doing enough differently that it's really capturing me. I think there's a world where like this could be a slow start, and the more I feel like it could ramp up into something that's at least interesting, but for the time being, yeah.
I think what I would say is if you are somebody that liked, say, Ray Donovan or Bosch,
Yeah.
or like Taylor Sheridan stuff, then I think you'll probably enjoy this. It's a very well made uh, show with great actors. That like if you just love this stuff, like, and if you're looking for Taylor Sheridan stuff, but you're maybe a little sick of Taylor Sheridan himself, then this is probably a great alternative. You'll probably really like it. For me, it's I think I echo what you said. It's just like there's not enough new happening here, and I think I've had my fill of this kind of show myself. But I think that plenty of people can find plenty of enjoyment from it.
Mike Bloom interviewed Helen Mirren, I believe, about the show, and I interviewed Tom Hardy. That interview should be coming out. So, you know, it was interesting to come. He signed up for the show because he wanted a long-term project. So we'll see. I hope he gets it. Ronan Bennett, the creator, we talked about this last. You mentioned this last week, Taran. He did Day of the Jackal as well. So having a little bit of a moment this year in terms of like getting his stuff off the ground, which is interesting. So.
Oh, look at this popular searches.
Yeah.
Right there. Mid-Century Modern is the other show I did check out. I watched one episode of this. I think they're all out. This is the like sitcom, and when I say sitcom, I mean it is a sitcom. Like I haven't seen a show made like this in like a decade.
Put sitcom in situational comedy.
It is like full on. There's a laugh track / live audience. I'm not sure.
I haven't done that in a while, I think.
Yeah, and like it's got the flat lighting. It's got like the like you make a joke, you pause for laughter. Like it is old school style show. So if you are missing that in your life, then you might really like Mid-Century Modern. I think it's got some heart. It was decently funny. For me, I was like, I'm not going to watch anymore because I don't think I have it in me to watch that kind of sitcom nowadays.
I really like all three actors here. I like Nathan Lane, I like Matt Bomer, and I like Nathan Lee Graham. So I'm like intrigued by it, but I did not make time for it this past week. So
yeah, I think that's pretty much what there is to say on it. Anything else new? Any movies that you watched? New?
I did watch Snow White. I think it's a week old now at this point, but I did watch it.
Currently a 1.6.
That's
ridiculous.
That's silly. That's fake.
That's like one of the lowest rated movies of all time.
Yeah, like it's not that bad. Is it bad? Is it like? But it's like it's not that
unusual activity.
Yeah, there you go. IMDb flagging unusual activity for all the 1 ratings. Like, you know what? Ziegler is good in it, and she's a really good singer. I just don't get a lot of the choices they made. We talked about this a lot. Like when I was like, I feel like all my thoughts were affirmed in terms of like, I don't really know why they thought Snow White needed to be made into live action in 2025. I think Gal Gadot is like, I also don't think she's as bad as everyone's saying, but she's definitely not like amazing. And then the use of the CGI dwarves just completely takes me out of it. And I don't know why they did that either. So it's exactly what you think it is. You don't need to go to the theater and watch it. It's evidence that it like got beat out by A Working Man this past weekend at the box office, which I haven't seen. And I probably will. This is funny. This one is like, basically, so the thing about this one, A Working Man, is that like it's made by the same person who did Beekeeper, but it's not a Beekeeper sequel because they're already doing a Beekeeper sequel, and this is one that they just made and sold off. And like Beekeeper and A Working Man actually, I think, got bought by 2 different distribution companies. So like it's very funny that's like this seems like a Beekeeper, but it's not. Like it's
They're just like, we found a vein. Let's Let's mine
Let's
this.
hit it. Let's hit it. So yeah,
and it worked. It beat Snow White.
It did beat Snow White. Yeah, it was kind of a weird weekend. I didn't watch The Woman in the Yard or Death of a Unicorn either. There's also, are you familiar with The Chosen, Taran? Do you know anything about The Chosen? Which is it's the story of the Bible that they're just doing.
Is 2017?
Well, they did a TV series, and I believe they released The Last Supper. I think it might be the episode that they released. Oh yeah, The Chosen, The Last Supper.
Wow, very popular. 9.1 rating on IMDb with 56,000 ratings.
So everything I've heard about this is that like it's like exceptionally well made because it's like whatever, but it's just like it is just the Bible. So like I think it's like kind of like if you're not super into that,
man,
then
if you're adapting the Bible, you thought the sci-fi fantasy fans were gonna get upset with you for not being accurate to the books.
I think the opposite. They like are loving it. They're like, yeah, I don't know. I get every time I hear like I'll hear people like, yeah, I kind of like watched it like jokingly, and I was like, damn, it's actually like it's not bad. That's kind of what I hear about The Chosen. So I don't know if there's any Chosen listeners out there.
Is this the sort of thing where like if you're like, all right, I love the Bible, but I don't want to have to read it.
Yeah.
Can I watch the show now?
Listen, if you are a child who's going to be in Sunday school for the next like 10 years, you're going to watch a lot of The Chosen, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I mean, I don't think there's a lot to say on it, but in case you were unaware, like there's a lot of, I would say, usually like Christian media that gets released that it goes very under the radar in terms of the mainstream, but tends to make a decent amount of money and tends to usually be pretty well received by its audience, which I just find interesting.
Yeah. I think this has been like, I don't know that it has like the world's biggest budget, but it was like just well enough made that like it's just, and I think they release it I think even the TV show, they release it in theaters, I think is like a little bit of the thing behind this, which is why. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
Okay. Should we catch up on some things then?
Let's do it.
Let's. I already mentioned Mythic Quest. I did finish out the season. It ended this week. Jess, who helps produce this podcast, is in the chat. She's a Mythic Quest viewer, and she's very upset with the end of this fourth season, which is a sentiment I have seen echoed. There's a decision made at the end of the season that people were not super pleased with. I think I also agree. I think I was like, this was a lot stronger before you made this decision. I don't think I care as much as most, but I've also kind of like stopped being as invested in the show in general. I think season 4 was fine. There were some cool moments. In particular, I really liked the murder mystery episode. But in general, I'm kind of feeling a little bit apathetic toward the show as a whole. And I definitely can understand why people are upset about the ending of this particular season.
Yeah, the last thing I think I watched of the show is there's like an episode that is pandemic related. Is that right? That sounds notable,
probably,
right? Jess, yeah. I think but yeah, the end of season 2. So I'm like 2 seasons behind on it. Kind of feel like for those I'm being a little bit like, I didn't leave it for any other reason than it's kind of this example of like, there's just a lot of stuff that I can watch that's really good. And I liked Mythic Quest and often felt like Mythic Quest was a thing that often I felt was like fine until it would then have like an amazing episode or something. And then you would feel kind of like justified in watching it, but then became a little tough to be like, okay, like I'm going to go watch it. That was especially at a time when Post Show Recaps was out where I was like just covering a lot of different stuff. And so I will dive into it again at some point, but I just haven't for the time being.
It does feel like you have to wade through some stuff to get to the juice of it sometimes, I think, which is part of the issue. Another show finished this week, which I also watched all of, which is Reacher season 3, I believe. And it was fine.
I felt like people, this is a show that I kind of get surprised sometimes when I sort of get tapped into the way in which like it seems like the show is really popular. Yeah.
It's I mean, I'll say this. I started season 1, didn't finish it. Didn't even try to watch season 2. Season 3, the only season I have finished. Therefore, by my account, it's the best season of the show so far.
There you go.
I thought it started very strong. I think it ended a little bit weaker. But I think it was pretty good. And Alan Ritchson is just a very interesting lead for this show. He has such a weird take on like your typical big badass action hero character. And I find it fascinating. I don't always think it works. I think I love him as like an actor, as a dude, but I don't think it always works for me. But I do think it's very interesting, and I think in some ways, even though it doesn't always work, it's different enough that I'm like, oh yeah, it's unique. It's a weird take. So I think it was a decent season of TV, especially if you like this kind of show.
I would like to try an experiment this where I don't know that my dad watches the show, but I think that my dad probably watches the show. I think I'm going home this week up to my parents' place for the weekend. I'm not going to watch Reacher, but I'm going to ask my dad. All I'm going to say is, do you watch the show Reacher? And I'm going to report back verbatim what my dad says, because he'll probably be like, oh yeah, it's really good. And he'll go on some tangent about Reacher that I'll then relay to you next week, Taran. We'll see if I remember to do that if I go home.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
We already mentioned the Pitt had a great episode this season. This week.
Yep.
Any other shows to catch up on? I did watch a couple movies.
Well, we the White Lotus aired its penultimate episode.
Which I actually missed the episode last night, but I've heard it was good.
That's okay. Yeah, there's one more to go. So I'm assuming next week we can chat a little bit about like did it land the plane. That's been very fun. A show that I should have put in the new shows, but actually it aired 2 back-to-back weeks. There's a phenomenon on Amazon Prime called Last One Laughing, Taran, which first time I heard it, there was a Canadian version that had Jay Baruchel, but the one that I just watched was the Last One Laughing, the UK version, which if you're a fan of Taskmaster, you will have seen, I think all but one person on the show has been on Taskmaster. I think that Richard Iowati has also not been, but like basically should be, and Jimmy Carr, I guess, hasn't been on either. This was so funny. The premise is, bunch of comedians get put into a room. If you laugh, you get a yellow card. If you laugh again, you get a red card and you're out. Last one laughing wins. This show is very fun. And there's basically like, there's a Canadian version. There's an Irish version. There's an Australian version. This is the UK version. I'm sure at some point the US will do a version as well.
This is just it's a universal streamers have been doing this for a decade.
Yes. So I really enjoyed it. If you like Taskmaster and are like looking for a little of like a Taskmaster hit before the new season comes out, I highly recommend Last One Laughing, because I think it was like a blast. In particular, just like some of the people in here are just absolutely some of the funniest people. Bob Mortimer might be the funniest human being I've ever seen in my entire life. So it's very, very fun. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, this I'm excited to watch this. I think this will be it's got a lot of people I like here. So
also, speaking, if we're on the reality TV Top Chef Destination Canada, filmed in Toronto, keep an eye. Maybe keep an eye out for some people who maybe get to, try out some of the food. Not that I'm not saying anything in particular, but maybe just
I gave up trying to find that because there's way too many Top Chefs.
That's okay. But it's been very enjoyable as well. So we don't talk a lot of reality TV here because the whole network is reality TV, but I'm watching that as well. So.
I did recently talk about $1 Million Secret that just started on Netflix, which is I talked about this on my YouTube / Twitch channel. I thought this was interesting because I basically heard of it as a ripoff of The Traitors.
Right.
And then I looked it up and I was like, what's the Netflix Traitor show? And it's like, blatant ripoff of it's being panned as a blatant ripoff of The Traitors. And my conspiracy theory is that Netflix is the one that put out that comparison.
That's very smart. That's very smart.
It is not like The Traitors, but The Traitors is very popular. So the fact that it's like, oh, Netflix's version of The Traitors is a ripoff, I think would make people who like The Traitors be like, oh, well, maybe I'll check it out.
Yeah, I believe Chappelle and Scally are covering this on RHAP, but Yeah, this seemed. I saw just the
It
opening
was
clip
good.
of
I liked it.
of the premise. Like I saw TikTok, I think on the premise. I don't know. I'm probably gonna watch this. It seems fun. So.
I think so far it is mechanically better than the traitors, but that's
Oh.
not hard to do.
Interesting.
All right. I did watch 2 movies.
Tell
I'm going
me.
to build some into 2 movies. They were from, I think, this year. One of them, Furiosa. When I say
Oh,
this year, I meant
yeah,
last
yeah.
year.
In the calendar, like a year,
Yeah,
as of a year ago, they came out. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. This is really interesting. This so like to set up what you're about to say. This movie basically was like, you know, really hyped up because it's in the Mad Max saga, you know, in that universe. It came out. I feel like it didn't do well at the box office, but most people I know liked it. And there was this weird thing of people being like, who doesn't like this? I think it's actually very good. And like nobody was kind of saying that they disliked it. That was kind of my feeling. Like I felt there was a very confusing response, basically because it didn't do well at the box office.
Yeah, yeah. I got a lot of sort of critical look because it was like, the first one was so well received that it was a bit of a darling. And then they took so long to make the second one, and then it flopped in the box office. And it was like, well, what did they do wrong?
Yeah.
I thought it was fine. It's 2.5 hours. I
Yeah.
think it's too
Yeah.
long. I think
Yeah.
like the first act and maybe the final act were my least favorites, and you could probably just cut out the first act almost entirely, and it would probably be a tighter, better movie. But once you get into it, it's very fun, and I think that Anya Taylor Joy was very, very good in it. So yeah, fun movie. It's not something I would be like, you got to see this. But if you liked the first one, you'll probably hang out. There's some great action sequences with the. It's very unique, the kind of action it has because of the car situation. So good stuff.
That's probably the thing that it probably, like, in terms of like it's a good movie, but it has to live up to the expectations of Fury Road, and because like that movie is I think so good, and the action is so good that like you can see the hints of it, but it never just like Fury Road just feels like it starts and it never stops. And
Fury Road, I think, is a better movie
yeah.
overall.
What do you think of Hemsworth? I like him a lot. I think he's very fun in this movie, but I know it doesn't work for
Okay.
everybody.
It didn't. He did not quite work for me,
Yeah.
especially in the first act of the movie.
Yeah.
Just visually, all I could see was the makeup.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because it just didn't. He didn't look like a real human.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
I think that after the first act, it got better. And the makeup worked better. And the character worked better too, with less focus on him. So a little bit of a mixed bag for Chris Evans. But I don't know if it was strictly his faults.
I also really like Tom Burke, who he was recently in Black Bag as well, but he plays Praetorian Jack. And I'm like, I don't think there's anything he's ever in that I'm like, nah, I didn't like that. I think I just really like Tom Burke, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. The other movie I watched was Better Man. The Robbie Williams
Yes.
biopic.
Yes.
It was fun. I was I'm pretty like burned out on biopics. I don't really love them.
Yeah.
I think that this isn't quite breaking out of that. It is still a biopic, but there are, I think, 2 primary things that makes it better than most.
Yeah.
One is the monkey.
Yes.
It's just fun and cool and really well animated.
Yeah.
And just adds an element of visual style that just kind of differentiates it, and it's very fun.
Yep.
Number 2 is that this biopic is told via sort of like a first person perspective with Robbie Williams like narrating.
Yep.
Which I thought was a much better take on this kind of movie than your typical like third party detached viewpoint of like, here's the life of this person. This was like, here is my life. Here's where I messed up. Here's where I did this. And I thought that worked a lot better. It felt like it had more to say and more of a personality. And so for those reasons, I thought it was better than most biopics, but still pretty much follows the same general formula otherwise, and therefore wasn't like amazing for me, but pretty good.
I agree with that. I think I saw this with no idea that he was going to be a monkey, and so it was like completely like a surprise to me, and so it was so fun. I thought I do think like you can feel the Greatest Showman-ness to it, and I think Greatest Showman kind of also has a similar thing where like the music can be so good, and I think like him as the like the
Music was very good.
The visual style of it I think works extremely well, especially with the music. So I really like it. This movie has one of my favorite anecdotes of behind the scenes because this was pitched before the idea of like the guy who does Michael Gracie, who made Greatest Showman, wanted to make the Robbie Williams biopic before he ever had the idea that he would make Monkey. And he had been talking with Robbie Williams, and Robbie had said at one point, like, you know, I always feel like I was like a monkey. I was just thrown out there to perform, and it kind of clicked him. But he didn't immediately say it. So later, Michael Gracie came up with this idea separately. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna make him a monkey. It's gonna be, and it's to be a metaphor." And he went back to him and he said, "Robbie, like, you know, if you were to be any animal, you know, how do you see yourself?" And Robbie Williams says, trying to provide himself some self-worth, he said, "Like a lion." And he said, "No, a monkey." He said, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense." And he made him a monkey. So yeah.
I love that. I think also like not just the fact that it's kind of unique and it was a cool visual and well animated, but like it also kind of solves the issue of like making sure the actor looks like the person.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It just completely circumvents that in a way that is really good. Not that it would have mattered a lot to me, but like even because I don't even know Robbie Williams, but like if
Right.
they had somebody who is in a lot of makeup to make them look like Robbie Williams, that might have been very distracting for me,
Right.
even not knowing what he looked like in the first place. Yeah, that was fun.
Can I tell you something, Taran? I'm not a conspiracy theorist, okay? I'm not. I'm really not. But how they've just figured out how to make monkeys, CGI monkeys? How come? How come it's the only thing we've
Well, listen, they've
like,
put a lot of work into those Planet of the Kingdom of the Royal Ape of the House of Dragon.
The Times of
movies.
the Dragon. Is that right? Is that just it's all the money that went into that one? They just really nailed it. But like nothing else is as good. If there's one thing you can be sure of, is that a CGI monkey is going to look pretty darn good in a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Better than a CGI human. So, all right. We have some shows coming up. Nothing super huge, I would say. I see there's a show coming up on Netflix called Pulse. It's a medical drama. And let me tell you, this is a bad time to be releasing a medical drama.
It's going to be antithetical to the Pitt, which were like 15 episodes over 15 weeks, and this is going to be like 6 episodes in one day. No, thank you.
And it's like the personal and professional lives at the doctors and staff, and it's like everything that everyone's like, "Oh, I love the Pitt because it's not this. It sounds like this is that."
Jack Bannon,
hey, you know.
Yeah, Jack Bannon is going to star in the. I think he's Pennyworth in the show Pennyworth. I think his notable claim to fame, but yeah,
we'll see.
10 episodes. All right, we'll see. Pulse.
I actually would have preferred 6.
Me too.
There's another one, The Bondsman with Kevin Bacon. This is going to be on Prime. This one looks actually like it might be kind of fun. It's just like a supernatural action kind of romp. It's like doesn't say comedy here, but it struck me as a comedy.
Feels like supernatural. Is like the vibe I'm getting from it, but he's a bounty hunter who gets resurrected to hunt down demons for the devil. That's the premise. Kevin Bacon.
Probably not going to knock anyone's socks off, but might be a fun little like it gives me big like Evil Dead vibes. So
yeah. That's Yep, I feel that.
There is an animated show, Devil May Cry. I assume based on the video games of the same name, coming to Netflix. These animated shows have been fairly miss more than hit for me on Netflix, but it looks visually very cool.
It does look cool. Yeah.
And then there's one more that I saw, Dying for Sex. This is a Hulu show. Also FX, it looks like. This is the story of a woman diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer who abandons her husband of 15 years and begins to fully explore her sexuality, starring Michelle Williams. I think this could be fun.
I'm a little hit or miss on
fun might be a weird name for that, but
Michelle Williams. I think I mostly feel like she doesn't work for me, and every once in a while she really works for me. I really liked her in The Fablemans, the Spielberg sort of like semi-biographical movie. So yeah, I'll try this out. I don't know that it, we'll see. Hulu.
it's also got Jenny Slate, Rob Delaney. So I think it sounds very similar to me in terms of premise as the one recently with the woman whose sexual partners were dying.
Yeah. Like, oh yeah.
Which was also pretty fun.
I feel like
I think that's why I said it would
name.
sound.
Yeah.
But yes, we'll see. It's could be a hit, could be a miss here.
Okay.
That's pretty much what's coming up this week. Like I said, probably one of the last, a final kind of slow week in anticipation of, I think, a big week coming up in the following week.
Agreed. Yeah.
There are some movies coming out this week. The biggest one, of course, a Minecraft movie.
I'll probably go see. I had a pretty good Minecraft phase of like. I honestly think that there's not much more fun than like that. Like one of those first editions of Minecraft. The first like hour and a half of playing Minecraft, where you just like exploring a new world, were so fun. I have no expectations of this being good at all, but I'll probably just go see it just cause. So, they're gonna get my money. So, yeah. Did you Minecraft at all, Taran? Ever?
I did. Not significantly. But I also don't think that, like, I really don't think that playing Minecraft will be a requirement to watch this movie.
No, certainly not.
But it is like one of the most popular games of all time. So I don't know. I just like, it looks ridiculous. It feels like will this have the success that Mario did is essentially the thing here. And like, will this movie be enough to sort of save the current state of the US box office this year?
You know what? Here's my thing. If I don't know like what you'd put an over under at in terms of like the line, but I would bet the over on most bets, just because I think that the immediate reaction to this movie was, people have to remember that like there is a level of people who like are on the internet who like were, I had a Minecraft, I played Minecraft for a bit, and I'm like 33, so people who are a little bit younger than me and played it and now are looking at it being like, oh my God, they're going to ruin it. But you have to think that this is the only way that you make a ton of money at the box office is either like every adult goes to see it or a lot of kids go to see it. And I just think this is a movie that a lot of parents are going to take their kids to go see this weekend. And I think for that reason alone, it's going to make a ton of money. And it doesn't really matter how good or bad it is. It will probably just do well, like I think it'll be this. And it's no judgment on the box. Like you look back every year on like movies that are in the top 10, and like the Minions movies make money, like nobody's being like, we need, this is fine. It's exactly in that same bucket, and it doesn't sell us anything really about media. So we'll see.
This is we can quickly run through a list. Any other big movies coming out this week that you want to talk about?
I don't think there are. I think there's some movies that are being limited release.
Yeah, there's
nothing,
some limited.
Nothing big. Yeah.
There's one called Screamboat coming out, which is the Steamboat Willie has now officially come out of copyright into the public domain, and this is your classic let's make a horror movie that is Steamboat Willie, which is Mickey Mouse's first property, is now going to be a horror movie.
Is this part of the Pooniverse, or this is different?
I couldn't tell you.
I think it's different. That's great. That's wild. I just assumed it was going to be part of the Winnie the Pooniverse.
Given the response to the Pooniverse, it's probably a good thing if it's different.
I agree, but yeah. Okay. Screamboat. Yes.
Screamboat. Sorry. There's one coming out called The Luckiest Man in America, which looks like it already had some kind of release already.
I saw this at TIFF.
There you
The
go.
problem with the movie, it has a bunch of people I like. It has Walton Goggins and it has Paul Walter Hauser plays the main character. I've seen the story a bunch of times, and then I think that
Cool story.
the movie just doesn't tell any of the interesting parts of the story. So just unfortunately, it's a little bit of a miss for me. But
Also, apparently this is just becoming a thing for me, but like hair and makeup on this guy is just not working for me.
I know.
Just I don't know why it's so prominent in the advertising.
There's
it's just not working.
At the Q&A, I was at like a movie where the writer and director was on the I can't remember if he's one or the other, whatever, it doesn't matter. And he gets asked a question. He's like, what happens, and he's like, oh, funny, like it's a really interesting story. And he says this thing, and it's huge gasp. But it's a thing he didn't put in the movie. And I was like, well, bro, you totally messed up. The thing that just like, you said a thing that happens in the world of this movie that you didn't put in the movie, and it got a huge reaction. And like, you just messed up, man. You just didn't tell the interesting part of the story. So I think it's just kind of, it just doesn't do anything really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. There's another one called Freaky Tales with Pedro Pascal, which is like a little action venture comedy.
This one has been getting good reviews I think it played at South by Southwest or Sundance. I can't remember. And it got really good reviews. So I'll be excited to go check this out if I'm able to. Yeah. I love Pedro.
And then there's one called The Grove, which is just a little horror movie. Probably not going to be anything too wild. There's one called A Nice Indian Boy, which also seems to have had some kind of release. Have you seen this one?
I have seen this. I saw it at not at the film festival, but at the TIFF Lightbox. It was a secret movie club movie. It's Jonathan Groff. It actually the main character, the main guy is Maturi Shukart, who plays he's in the Deadpool movies. He plays the cab driver in those movies. And it's actually his partner or husband, I can't remember, who is the director, Roshan Sethi. And it's sort of like autobiographical from the director's point of view, I believe, about bringing home a white boy to come. Like the nice Indian boy comes from the fact that like Indian parents, even though his son is gay, they want him to bring home a nice Indian boy. And so he brings home Jonathan Groff. It's okay. It doesn't like quite work as well as I want to, but for a like nice little like cute queer rom-com, it's pretty good. So yeah.
All right. And then one more I saw was Eric LaRue, which is this one seems to have been
Judy Greer
released in 2023, but is now getting I believe, limited release in theaters. Michael Shannon directed this movie. It's
that's
starring
fun.
Judy Greer and Alexander Skarsgård about the story of Janice, the mother of a teenager who shot and killed 3 of his classmates. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yep. So that's what I got movie wise.
I think there's a movie called Wake Up that's supposed to come out as well. I think it gets a full release. I think it also was like released a while ago, but it's just coming out. Anyway, I think this one is about maybe it's
I
not
saw this one too.
Yeah. It's about like activists, like young activists.
Yeah, it's an action horror about activists where a protest turns into a massacre.
Right. Oh, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, go watch these dark movies and then go watch the Minecraft movie as a palate cleanser. Yeah.
All right. Anything else, Grace?
No, I think that's what I got this week. Yeah.
All right. Well, really the main things I'm looking forward to this week are more of the studio and continuing the Pit, and then of course the finale of White Lotus. So stay tuned for all of that, and then we will be able to preview next week some of the bigger shows coming out soon. So stay tuned for that as well.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Well, that's what we have for you then. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you're subscribed on the We Know Scripted TV feed. And if you're watching along, that is usually the best way to do it because we have some visuals for you. Yeah, stay tuned for the Wheel of Time coverage that we got going on. And then upcoming, we've got The Last of Us and eventually some Andor stuff as well. So stay tuned for all of it. thank you for joining, and we will see all of you next time.